I'm Josh Rubin.
I'm Mark Chin.
This is the Rubin Special.
Here's what you need to know this week.
This week on the Rubin Special and What You Need to Know, we discuss Russia's invasion on Ukraine and its impact on global markets, people coming back to work, and what's happening in the local office market here in Manhattan, Opendoor's recent earnings report and its impact on the iBuyer space, and MTA rolling out a localized test of subway barriers for safety. So with the recent Russian invasion of Ukraine, we're seeing a lot of people tied to Russia, with the oligarchs having bought many trophy properties, both here in New York and abroad in places like London, transfer ownership in their stakes. I know Roman Abramovich bought 4 houses between 2017 and 2018 on East 75th Street with the idea to make it a mega mansion. He subsequently transferred ownership of those properties into the name of his ex-wife. The original purchases totaled $96 million and ultimately transferred ownership to $91 million. So that was definitely an estate planning vehicle. But Roman Abramovich also transferred ownership into his stake in the Chelsea football team in the UK into a trust of some sort to protect his interests there as well. So what are we seeing with the Russian invasion of Ukraine affecting property ownership recently?
Well, one of the big effects is cryptocurrency is up big since the invasion. Bitcoin, as an example, is up from 38,000 around 44,000 today. And that means the holders of cryptocurrencies are a lot wealthier now than they were a week ago. Inevitably, a good chunk of that money ends up in New York City real estate. So we expect that to have a positive follow-on effect. And that increase of interest in crypto as a safe harbor and difficult to trace as well is probably going to have a lasting effect.
Yeah. So we'll keep an eye on this space. There's definitely been a little bit of a drop in interest in former markets that were favored by Russians. Sunny Isles in Florida being one of them. We've seen some decline in Russian interest there. And with Russia's recent block, or I should say really the global SWIFT system, which is the transfer system when you wire funds, it goes through the SWIFT network, and some of the sanctions have impacted Russia's access to the SWIFT network, so you're unable to move your money from a Russian bank into another bank as part of a transaction.
And that's very true, Josh, and that effect has caused a bit of a liquidity crisis globally. And so central banks have been pouring money into the global financial system in order to stabilize it. The short-term effect on that is interest rates are actually down. So we were north of 4% last week, and as of yesterday, we're in the high 3 handle, but that's about a 30 basis point drop. And
that, of course, is the rate on the 30-year fixed.
Yeah, thank you. And that is a huge boon right now for those who are thinking about imminently doing a purchase.
Yeah. So we'll keep an eye on the impact of Russia's invasion in Ukraine and what effect it has here on our local markets and those nationally and abroad.
That's right, Josh. This is going to be an evolving story for sure, and the long-term impacts will remain to be seen, but certainly we're going to be keeping an eye on that stock market as well.
Yeah. So we've seen a lot of people go back to work recently, which is interesting, and the Midtown office market is actually still lagging behind what we might expect because of some continuing to work from home. But the office market is alive and well. We just saw Estee Lauder lead the pack with a renewal of their 64,000 square feet at 575 Broadway.
Yeah, and I think a lot of New Yorkers will feel that the office market is coming back to life as they're in the subway at rush hour and feeling that crush. It feels very much like old times in the city. So
we're not quite back to pre-pandemic volume in the office market, but we are seeing interest return with volumes up just a little more than 70% year over year. So that's definitely a sign that there is a return to normal vacancy rates, even though we're seeing space availability up a little bit more than 17%.
I mean, 17% is a big number, and there are a lot of new construction office buildings coming online in the next 24 months, including big downtown, One Wall Street is coming on. Wenyan Group has a spec office building coming up in Hudson Yards, and that's going to put additional pressure on supply.
We've also seen Google open up their second headquarter campus here in the city along Washington Street. Facebook is soon behind, and Disney is in the process of doing new construction on a full block campus where they're consolidating all of their offices and studio space to Hudson Square, which is sort of just on the western side of Soho, very close to that second Google headquarters.
Yeah, and that's true. And I think when you're talking about Google, when you're talking about Facebook, you're very much talking about the smartest people in the room, right? And for them to be making these giant bets on real estate during the pandemic and increasing their square footage and footprint dramatically just shows that smart money is on New York coming roaring back.
That's right. So we'll definitely continue to keep an eye on the office market because that's a great indicator of people coming back to the city and needing space.
Further, employers are now putting real pressure on people to come back into the office since the mask mandate was finally over this week. And you'll see, especially in banking, those employers there like Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, Chase, Goldman Sachs, and those other ones that were very much pushing to come back in the office very early last year, they're going to be strident about getting butts back in seats.
Yeah. So we'll continue to keep an eye on the office market, and it's a great leading indicator of what's happening here in the city.
That's right, Josh.
Also in recent news, Mark, we had Opendoor's stock down more than 25% as it increased its footprint to over 44 cities.
Yeah, that's an interesting story. Opendoor is one of the iBuyer companies. They go and buy directly from sellers, trying to disrupt the brokerage market. Zillow exited that business last quarter with huge losses, and now it looks like Opendoor's business model may be in trouble as well.
We saw revenue increase, but its cost to do business also increased. So their net losses widened. However, the revenue increased. So we'll keep an eye on Opendoor and what they do for future business.
Let's remember that this business model is predicated on an algorithm saying that we can buy and flip these homes at a profit very quickly. If that algorithm is even slightly off, last year they bought 37,000 homes. That can translate into huge losses, especially in a pressured market.
That's right. And we saw Zillow exit the iBuyer market within the last few months as they saw their algorithm and model was simply not profitable. Zillow ended up booking $880 million in losses as a result of its iBuyer program. And so they exited, and they're more focused on what they call the Zillow Premier Agent program, where they're selling space on their website, and the leads of consumers' inquiries go to local agents.
That's right, Josh. So somewhat about focusing on their core business. The iBuyer business was sort of a sideline. And what they realized, and what I think Opendoor and Redfin are realizing, is how capital intensive this business is. So if you get it wrong, once again, you're being leveraged with debt means your losses are highly magnified.
That's right. So we'll keep an eye on Opendoor and see what happens with their revenue.
Yeah, we will.
So Mark, this past week, the MTA announced that they're testing subway barriers at 3 different stations to prevent future catastrophes like we saw a few weeks ago with a woman being pushed in front of a train at 42nd Street. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's right, Josh. You know, we have a very old MTA system, so I think a lot of people would feel much more comfortable if they were able to have those barriers like they have in other cities. I think it's a step forward, but they're only testing, as I said, in 3.
Right.
And there are many, many platforms where it's totally impossible to put them in, but some barrier protection is better than none, I think.
That's right. They're testing them at 3 stations which are optimized for these barriers, apparently because of curves and columns. They're prevented from putting the barriers in, but I think it's a great idea for people's safety, both physically, and also, the optics of it is that the MTA are actually taking steps needed in order to prevent future accidents from happening. And it's something that we all need to think about.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm personally quite thankful that they're starting with 42nd Street because it's a very busy station.
Absolutely. With hundreds of thousands of riders per day, the MTA can definitely do a much better job of making our commutes that much safer.
100%.